Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here's another deck profile for you guys today. This time it's on Branded Despia Bystials. So it's a deck I've been wanting to piece back together for a while, especially because the Bystial engine now exists. And yeah, I just love what the Bystials can do overall. And it definitely adds a lot of advantage for the branded strategy in general because they do connect to the lore in some ways. So yeah, I figured I'd share with you guys what I got this time around. And yeah, let's get started. So the main deck is 44 cards. So yeah, I had to kind of like balance out a little bit because you do have to run quite a bit of combo pieces for this deck to work. But overall, I'm not too worried about the deck count simply because you can kind of add cards quite frequently or just deck them by sending cards to the graveyard. So that's one of the cool things about it. But anyway, starting off with 3 copies of Albert. This is primarily your Stratos of the deck. Searches out any branded spell or trap. It also has a graveyard effect which basically acts as a form of effect failure sort of deal. And yeah, definitely want to see this card as often as you can in your opening hand. So yeah, Albert, definitely try this at 3. Next, 2 copies of Despian Tragedy. I was running 3 before, but I cut it down to 2 because again, I'm running several different engines now, aside from the Despias. So like I said, you kind of have to like balance out your ratios very correctly and in order for this deck to function right. But yeah, Tragedy is still great because if it's sent to the grave or banished by a card effect, you can add a Despia monster from your deck to your hand. Also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it from your grave and then reset any branded spell or trap from your graveyard. One thing for those who don't know, you can only use each of these effects or only one of these effects per turn and only once that turn. Same thing with Elibur. For the other Despia monsters I'm running 1 Dramaturge still because it's a 3K body and it also has a negation effect, so I figured why not. Plus it can easily be special summoned out if it's used as fusion material, so that's one of the things why I like it. And 1 Ad Libitum, which is basically a form of Monster Reborn for your Despias. So yeah, I really like this ratio very much. All right, so that pretty much rounds up the Despia package. For the Albaz package, I'm only running 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz now, simply because I am still running the 1 Albion, which actually might as well just bring that out now. It does count as Fallen of Albaz, so you're still technically playing this at 3. But you still rely on it, but you don't want to see it too often because it can be a bit of a brick. So that's the whole reason behind it. Plus, Albaz can easily be cycled back into the main deck anyway with cards like Libellion. So yeah, I felt like 2 was the perfect number. And of course the 1 Albion, because again, you send a branded spell trap to the grave, place this card to the bottom of the deck, and it's basically Upstart Goblin. From my tech options, I am running 1 copy of Ecclesia still, simply because not only is she a great discard fodder for your Super Poly, but she also enables you more card advantage because like during the end phase, if a fusion monster hits the grave, you can add her back to your hand. So you always have like some form of hand at least in your whenever playing in game. And the fact that again, just free discard fodder. Plus, she also has a Cyber Dragon based effect which tags into a Fallen of Albaz, so also acts as a free form of disruption. So great going second piece and just great for utility overall. I'm also running the new Blazing Cartesia, the Virtuous. So for those who don't know what this does, if you control a Fallen of Albaz or have one in your grave, you can special summon this card for free. And it's basically a polymerization. You can fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster using monsters on your field or in your hand. So Blazing Cartesia is just really good. And she has the same graveyard clause. If a fusion monster is in the graveyard, you can add this card from your graveyard back to your hand. So again, great for utility. Speaking of which, 1 Tribarian Mercurier is my last utility card. It's basically the only hand trap I am actually running. As long as you have an Albaz fusion monster, you can discard this to negate a monster effect. But if this card is banished, you can add 1 Fallen of Albaz or 1 monster that mentions it. So yeah, Tribarian Mercurier is definitely a great card to have in your hand or in your deck. So anyway, that rounds up for, actually before I move these, let me just go and get these out of the way too. I'm also running the Frankfurt package still, 2 copies of Edge of Chain. But yeah, that pretty much rounds out this engine right here. All right, now we're moving on to the highlights of this deck, the Bystials. And spoiler warning now, I'm only running 2 of each of them, simply because, again, trying to balance out my ratios just so I can make room for other cards. And so far, it's working for me, so yeah. Starting off with 2 copies of the Bystial Libellion. Now, what this card does is that, of course, it can't be normal summon or set. It must be special summoned from your hand or your graveyard by tributing 1 level 6 or higher Dark Dragon monster, which is very easy for this deck to do. And then, of course, you can only summon Bystial Libellion once per turn this way. You can send this card from your hand to add 1 Bystial monster from your deck to your hand, except itself, and then during your main phase, you can place 1 branded continuous spell or trap card from your deck face up on your field. So that's actually pretty good. It's basically that Draco monster, Ignis Heat or something like that. That kind of, actually Dynamite kind of does that too. But yeah, the fact that you get access to like branded loss like right away, that's pretty nuts. And then for the other three, which all have the same clause, by the way, first starting off with Bystial Magnamut. So the other Bystial cards have the clause where you can target one light or dark monster in either graveyard, banish it if you do special summon them. But of course, that's not the main focus. But Magnamut is probably arguably the best one of the bunch. If this card is special summon, you can activate this effect during the end phase, add one dragon monster from your deck to your hand, or your graveyard to your hand. So great way to recycle resources. So basically it searches out any dragon, and of course Fallen of Albaz is a dragon monster, which is nuts. And of course it can't search out itself though. Next, 2 copies of Serenir. This is basically a Foolish Burial for your branded spells and traps. And of course, last but not least, 2 copies of Druid's Worm, which is basically spot removal. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can target one monster your opponent controls, send it to the grave. It does not destroy, so great way just to, have some spot removal, But yeah, that's basically all I'm running for the Bystials. And yeah, that rounds up our monsters. No hand traps in this deck again, except Mercurier. For spells, 3 copies of Branded Fusion, easily one of the most broken fusion spells out there. 3 Branded Opening, it's E-Telly and Rhoda. 3 Super Poly, just because your opponent can't respond to it, and I do have several targets for it. 2 copies of Patchwork, and of course to go along with it, 2 copies of Polymerization, because you definitely need it for your Guardian Chimera. I cut Allure Darkness, bringing back Triple T, just because, we are in a form where monster effects are at the plenty, and especially they're going to be activating a lot during your own turn, so if your opponent, activates a monster effect during your turn, you can just basically draw 2 cards or do whatever else you want with it, but I mostly just do it for the draw 2. For the one-ofs, 1 Branded Regained. If a light or dark monster is banished, except during damage step, you can target one of those monsters, place it to the bottom of the deck, and then draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Branded Regained once per turn. Once per turn, if your opponent normal or special summons a monster, except during damage step, you can target 1 Bystial monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only activate this effect of Branded Regained once per chain. So yeah, that's pretty nuts, right? Next, Branded Loss. We already know what this does. I'm only playing 1 Branded in red just because 2 was just too much. So, and honestly, once you resolve 1, you should be good. And 1 Foolish Burial. And for the only 2 traps I'm running is Branded Banishment, which is basically Super Poly. And then 1 copy of Branded Beast. This is basically spot removal so long as you control a Bystial monster and something that you can just tribute off. So yeah, and it also has an effect where during the end phase, you can target 1 branded continuous spell or trap in your graveyard, place it face up on your field. So great way to recycle your resources, basically. So yeah, definitely amazing cards overall. Now my extra deck is pretty much exactly the same as it always been. 2 Mirror Jade, just running 2 of each of the main ones. 2 Lebellion, 2 Albion, 2 Masquerade, decided to cut Brigand and replace it with Titaniclad, just because, and this primarily is kind of like just planning ahead for Cashiers, because a lot of the Cashiers, with the exception of Fenrir, all have more than 2,500 attack points. So they're really good just to deal with just to hit them with Super Poly on that part. So yeah. 1 Alba Lenatus, 1 Despian Coritis, and of course Guardian Chimera. And then of course my main Super Poly targets are going to be Starring Venom, Dragostapelia, and of course Garura. So all fantastic cards to run. I definitely recommend this lineup. All right, so that rounds out our extra deck. For the side deck, made some changes. I'm still running DD Crow on the side, by the way. This is primarily for tier limits. I'm also running the Necroworld Banshee tech still because I still see Flunderweeze from time to time, and that deck's just really annoying. 3 Crossout Designator. 2 copies of Lightning Storm is just a good blowout card, and a Harpy's Feather Duster too. I'm only running Called by the Grave on the side. It's just a filler until I get a 3rd Lightning Storm, but overall, yeah, this is pretty much what I'd like to run. And of course, another good blowout card, which is actually just an equalizer overall. 3 copies of Evenly Matched, because, we do have Dark Worlds now. Sometimes I still see Crystal Beasts being played, and yeah, I just want to have a good equalizer so I don't get disrupted, But overall, yeah, I definitely love this lineup. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.